So going back to your general work with corporate schools, organizations, what are
Hmm.
the key themes in the workplace that you see organizing that need more attention from a management point of view, part one, and then from an employee point of view, part two? Because I think there's a bit of a generational divide in terms of how people manage this and approach these things from an intrinsic point of view that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, so from a management point of view, I think this mentality of always on is the real challenge that we're experiencing in the mind, because and this is why I think COVID is one of the factors in as to why COVID has significantly altered society's mental health, is this expectation to always kind of be checking the emails first thing and like throughout lunch. Like I was working with an organization yesterday and they're still kind of all throughout lunch not really resting in any way because they're still on. They're out, they've got their laptop or they're eating food at the desk or whatever it may be. So from an organizational point of view, I think beginning to understand that the human mind and body needs rest, and performance will only rise if people rest more. Like there's not this mentality of working harder is only going to reduce performance. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything
I
there.
was just going to
You're
say
excited.
that the key buzzword is so will turnover, so will income,
Yeah.
so will productivity, which is often what gets people listening. I've found, sadly, it does get them listening, but increased productivity in workforce equals increased turnover revenue and probably reduced turnover in staff, all things which are good. So this is
Mhm.
my opportunity to say, anyone listening with the, I don't want to use the word silver haired because there's plenty of silver haired men out there I've met that are, are lovely about this sort of thing. But to play on a stereotype, the age old mentality of stiff upper lip, crack on, corporate environment that we've all seen on TV and have seen caricatured all over the place, that is actually a less productive way of working for overall KPIs as a business, in my humble opinion.
I agree 100%. And it's been very interesting with some organizations that have really thought, right, let's give this a go. Let's really optimize break times and optimize lunches. And in the evening, give people proper time where they feel like they can be really off of their tech and not have an expectation to respond. How energy and then intrinsic inner motivation begins to rise if you feel like you're a little bit more respected in your role and you also have higher energy levels. So I think rest is a really important thing from a management perspective. The other part is I'm very into the relationships employees have within organizations with the management and with one another, and how that then affects their mental health, their value within the organization, all of those kind of things. And with the neuroscience in mind, the oxytocin chemical is going to enable you to basically build trust within an organization, and then also has a huge effect on your confidence and your belief in yourself within an organization if you're high in this chemical. So you see some companies, they just feel really bonded together and they feel like they're working as a unit, and you see their performance is pretty high. Whereas when you have these more fractured organizations, not so much. And one of the biggest things with oxytocin is complementary behavior. So when you experience a compliment, when someone has basically said that they value your contribution to a project, or when you've experienced it in your life about your appearance or something you succeeded with, a compliment as a human being is something that's really, really nice to experience. And from an oxytocin perspective, you get this monster spike in oxytocin when you experience a compliment. And I think when organizations really prioritize valuing their employees by making it very clear as to, oh, this is how you contributed to that project, and it's really cool that this was how you did this. And when you begin to make that much more normal within all of their language and their comms inside a company, I think it can really help. And then you have a more trusting organization, so you have more belief that one another are going to execute the tasks. So I'd say rest and valuing the staff and being complimentary and understanding contribution, really, really key. And then from an employee's perspective, I really think it's about taking full power over your own mental health and really beginning to think, I've got to prioritize some of this a bit more. And I really, from like when you're thinking employees in the workplace, that's quite a dopamine environment because that's working. And if you think when we were hunter gatherers or whatever it may be, the working environment would be hunting or building or finding food or whatever it may be. So dopamine is the really worky chemical. And I really think understanding what is my primary thing that's crashing out my dopamine. You've basically got five options. You've got too much booze, too much junk food, too much social media, too much porn, or too much drugs. So, and drugs would be synthetic drugs or vaping or something like that. So those are your five. And as you listen to that now, if you think, what is my number one? Is it booze? Is it social media? Is it junk food? Is it porn? Is it drugs? And one of those probably is getting abused in some way, recognizing that that is causing dopamine to crash. And it's not about, oh, this has to completely go, like I'm a bad person if I'm doing this. It's not our fault. These things have been created in society and they tap into a deep instinctive part of us that loves to feel a certain way. So it's not bad that we find these behaviors addictive. It's very normal. I have found many of those addictive myself over time. And recognizing which one it is and thinking this one has got to go down a bit if I want to feel good in my working day. And then understanding on the other side of it, I want to be rebalancing my dopamine. So every day I've got to find an activity that I want to do that is quite a lot of effort. So it could be I'm going to get much more organized with my life. I'm going to get a much more organized bedroom, work setup, workflow. Organization based stuff is really good. Could be the cold shower stuff. Cold showers are crazy good for dopamine. They've done some cool studies that have shown you can actually get a 2.5x rise in your baseline dopamine from a cold shower, which is exactly the same as the rise that you can see from cocaine, which is just mental that cold water could do that. Cocaine will peak at 9 minutes and then fall below baseline. With a cold shower, you'll get a rise for about 2.5 to 3 hours. So at the end of your shower, putting it cold and just dealing with the pain is a really good thing to do. So you could have organization, you could have cold water, exercise is good, focused and achievement based stuff, thinking about getting more in the zone when you're working. These kind of things really key from an employee performance and mental health perspective.